There's 15% silver hiding inside of HVAC brazing rods. The question that I have is, can I get it back out? And even more importantly, is it even worth it? This project has been kicking around the back of my brain for a while. I started with about 4.5 pounds of fittings, and I'm able to cut out about a pound that's nothing but copper. Even though we started with 15% silver inside of the braze, once you add the fitting itself, I'm guessing we're somewhere around 2 to 3% of silver in the entire metal that's left. I fit as much as I can into the crucible, then flatten the rest of the fittings. This way they don't take up that much space. After getting the electric furnace up and running and it melts everything down, I just keep adding fittings until the crucible is pretty much full of liquid metal. Another benefit of melting these fittings down is it removes any refrigerant oil from inside of the copper pipe. I take a MAP gas torch and preheat this 5 kilogram crucible. This way I get it clean of pour as possible. I grab the tongs, grab the crucible, and start pouring. I can't even begin to explain how much radiant heat was coming off of this. I call it in for the night, I let everything air cool, and the next morning it's ready to weigh. And it comes in at 1.63 kilograms or 3.59 pounds. I spent way too much time on the internet reading about how to remove silver from copper, and there are plenty of ways. The most popular method I see being used is to dissolve everything in nitric acid. But I'm going to try a different route and try to electroplate the silver out of the copper. Any metal that is more reactive than copper, such as iron, magnesium, and zinc, will dissolve into the electrolyte solution. But any metal that is less reactive than copper won't dissolve and will fall out as an anode sludge, such as silver, gold, and platinum. I have zero reason to believe that there's any gold or platinum here, so I'll be focusing on the silver. For electrolysis, you'll need a cathode and an anode. The cathode will be the copper foil that I've glued to the glass, and the anode will be the copper bar from the copper-silver mixture that I poured earlier. For the electrolyte solution, I'll be using copper sulfate dissolved in distilled water. Next, I'll break out the DC power supply, connect positive to the anode, and negative to the cathode. I come back a couple hours later, and you can clearly see we're adding copper to the cathode in the back. And this black powder at the bottom, I'm pretty sure is the anode slime, which should be nothing but silver. After the first day of electrolysis, we've successfully removed 0.09 pounds from the anode. As you can see on the glass plate covered in the copper foil, it's starting to deposit new copper on it. And we're starting to deposit quite a bit of black powder at the bottom of the tank. After doing more research, I found out you need to add a small amount of acid to act as an electrolyte, which helps conduct electricity through the solution. Before adding the acid, we were at 29 watts with 2.5 amps, and after adding the acid, we were at 2.2 watts at 2.5 amps. Over the next couple of days, it slowly dissolves this copper bar, and at this point, we're down over 1 pound of copper. Throughout this process, I'll need to filter the electrolyte solution to remove as much of the anode slime as possible. To speed things up, I got a vacuum filter so it won't take quite as long. Even pulling 25 inches of vacuum, it still took forever once the filter got clogged with debris. To speed everything up, I'll use a trick I learned from my sister when she cleans her fish tanks. I'll run a siphon, and I'll pull all of the debris off the bottom of the tank. Another thing I did to speed up this whole process is I got myself a separatory funnel. This helps concentrate all of the heavier debris at the bottom of the funnel. I'm able to crack the valve, collecting the concentrated debris into one bucket, then running the rest of the electrolyte solution through the vacuum filter. Next, I came back from a long weekend and there was quite a bit of debris at the bottom of the tank, which I was able to successfully remove using the siphon method. At this point, the bar is down to about a quarter of where it started at 0.88 pounds, and you can clearly see there's not much left of this bar. Over the last week of the project, the bar continued to shrink until all that was left was this small corner piece. At this point, I'm going to give up on trying to dissolve any more copper and silver. I'll flush the entire tank and filter everything out. As I remove the cathode, I wash it down to remove any silver and electrolyte solution. It had grown and was kind of stuck at the bottom, but I wiggled it back and forth and finally got it out. Any copper debris at the bottom of the tank I'll keep out of the anode solution so I don't contaminate my new silver with any copper. To speed up the filtering process, I picked up a 1 liter separatory funnel. This was about 8 times larger than the funnel I had before. To make sure I recovered as much silver as possible, I ran all of my anode solution through the vacuum filter twice. I kept the concentrate in a flat bottom boiling flask. Once all of the other anode solution was done processing, I started to filter this concentrate. After filtering, I rinsed it with distilled water to remove as much copper sulfate as I could. This way, when I burn it, I'm not breathing decomposing copper sulfate. I take the filter over to my electronics bench, and I use my heat gun to drive off as much moisture as possible. I collect all of the anode slime in a jar, and it turns out we're going to process about 14 grams in this first batch. I've already seasoned the crucible. I'll bring over about 9 grams in concentrate, and for the flux, I'm going to use borax. I'm not exactly sure what the best option is, but it's what I've had on hand from processing some cast iron. I break out the oxyacetylene torch, light it, adjust the flame, and start melting everything down. It doesn't take too long, and I can start to see very small silver spheres forming in the metal. As I move the torch around, the spheres all combine into one small button. I added the last 5 grams of silver, melted everything down, and with the 14 grams that we started with, it reduced down to 10 grams. For the next batch, I started with 11 grams of anode powder, and it yielded 8 grams of silver. In total, I was able to recover 23 grams of silver. At the current market price, if it's 99.99% silver, that comes out to $66. I'll take all 3 pieces of silver, put them back in the crucible, add some flux, and then melt them down into a single button. I adjusted the brightness on the camera so you can actually watch all 3 pieces of silver melt into one final piece. Once everything cools off, I take it on the crucible, throw it on the scale, and this is what it turned into. 22 grams of silver. At this point, I'm left with a button of silver covered in flux, and I'm not exactly sure what to do. But luckily enough, I know Quentin, who owns Q Jewelry on Mitchell's Main Street, and he's able to help me out. He cleaned it up by dissolving the flux in a pickling solution, and it really made it shine. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't really have enough silver to do anything with, so I'm probably going to have to do a couple more batches before I have enough to make something with it. The other question I have is, what is the purity of this? In order to figure that out, I'm going to do the scratch test. Put on a couple drops of the silver detecting solution, then we just gotta wait for these red crystals to grow. And from what I can tell from the color, we're at least dealing with 90% pure silver. In the end, was it worth it? Not even close. I probably spent 40 hours on this project and had to buy somewhere around $200 worth of materials. But was it fun? Most definitely. And I'll probably do it again.